Hey Mariko, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I am well. We just had a real quick catch up and stuff like that. So I know that you are in Oregon and
Yes.
and I am in California at the moment. Yeah, welcome to the call from that today.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Yeah, wonderful. Now you said you just graduated from the course in September.
hmm
Okay. Did you take the full level one course or did you just take TICCA, the advanced course?
I took both TICCB and A.
Okay, nice. Okay, awesome. So you did your full level one with us then.
Yes. Yep.
Great.
And I'm working on my ICF ACC level.
Yeah. Yeah. I always tell people it's the client hours that takes the most amount of time.
Yeah, I'm finding that to be true for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So, all right. Well, hey, tell us a little bit about yourself, introduce yourself, and then we'll dive into just a general conversation.
Okay, great. Yeah. So my name's Mariko Gilman. I'm in Portland, Oregon, but I was raised in South Surrey, Vancouver, BC, in Canada. So I'm a 15-year resident of Portland, but Canadian in my soul. And I have been coaching for almost 10 years,
Okay.
but wanted to really become, I think, like more skilled, more educated in what I was doing because I learned everything I know on the job and was trained by supervisors and mentors, but I had never taken a course. So, like, what is coaching? What's a methodology you can use? How does this all work? So I was really excited when I found Moving Human Spirit because I wanted not only the education, but also that ICF kind of stamp of approval on my
Yeah.
training to kind of legitimize what I was already doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, for sure. I always tell people ICF will give you that credibility. And
Yeah.
then the trauma-informed coach certification is kind of like the cherry on the top when
Mhm.
people are walking down the aisle going, "Oh, I need that one."
Yes. Yeah. And so that was really appealing about the program in particular.
Nice. So, what were you doing before, and are you still doing it?
Yeah. So my background is international education and cross cultural communication work. And I transitioned more into the diversity, equity, and inclusion space around 2018. So, kind of dovetailed with what I was doing. Like, how do people work with people who are different? How do we create environments of belonging and inclusion? Which
Yeah.
has kind of been the thread in my career. The transition to that DEI space in 2018. And I was doing training and consulting and facilitation. And that's really when the one on one coaching kind of became more important in my role because I was working with leaders who were trying to make change. And if you've worked in any organization that's trying to do any change, you know that those leaders need a lot of support.
Right.
And so I came in kind of as a consultant thinking, oh, I'll just give you these solutions, you'll go implement them. And like, great, ABC, we're all done. Turns out people are human and they need a lot of one on one support in navigating not only the organizational shifts, but also their personal, what's impacting them, how they're receiving information and feedback, how
Yeah.
they're communicating, all those things.
Yeah.
So, really, the need to become a more skilled coach started a few years ago.
Well, I think it's really important to understand that, as a coach, regardless of whether we're being a personal coach or an organizational coach, like working with a leader that we have to understand with people that we need to have a whole world view with them. So regardless of whether I've come to you because I need you for my leadership, my organizational skills, how does your life, your ordinary life outside of work impact you? And vice versa.
Yeah. And that holistic approach has been really, I think, something that's become more and more important in the work I'm doing because we're doing kind of anti-racist, anti-oppression, systemic change work.
Hmm.
People have a lot of emotional stuff that comes with that because the change is not just out there. It's often things we have to look inside to really assess. And one of the things I've realized is that a lot of the barriers we were encountering and trying to create change, it was invisible because it was inside somebody. There was resistance, and we couldn't unweave some of the trauma and the trauma responses
Hmm.
with the change process. And so it's become increasingly important for me in my work to make sure that there's this healing space and opportunity, an opportunity for people to process the emotional side of things and the communication side of things and how am I coming to this conflict side of things,
Right.
than just, hey, the solution is update your policy. Great, Um, and so for me, working with people who are not only leading change, but sometimes really impacted by the harm in the system that we're trying to stop. They need a space of healing. They need a space to process before they can even engage in something like policy or, changing a practice at work.
And I think a lot of times when you work within organizations, um, people don't understand that a lot of the reasons why people are high achievers within organizations and that is because of trauma.
Yeah.
And so that has been kind of like the go-to place to kind of focus on. Right. And then you start kind of extracting that trauma away from that. And it's kind of like, ooh, okay, that's why they're workaholics and all these other different facets of their life that kind of creep in.
Yeah. And I think it speaks to like those internal impacts of like must be seen as, or I need to prove myself as this, or,
Yeah.
that even deeper voice of like, am I good enough? Can I do it? Will they believe that I'm worthy? And those are kind of the
Yeah.
deeper narratives.
Imposter syndrome.
Yes.
It's just, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, well, that's awesome. Well, that's really great. I don't think we have actually had a conversation with any of the graduates that I've done a recording in that with that has been in the space that you're living in. So this is awesome.
Great.
So when you made the decision to become a trauma-informed coach, what was your pathway of to navigate that?
When I made the decision, or like what made me choose
Well,
the path.
either one. What made you choose to become a trauma-informed coach opposed just to a regular coach? What was the decision-making process between, say, maybe you and the organization on were there specific things, criterias that had to be laid out in a course that you were taking?
Yeah,
Just what was the path for you?
sure. Yeah. So one of the, like I said, kind of one of the main criteria was, is it ICF, certified, because I wanted that stamp.
Yeah, absolutely.
So many people are out there calling themselves a coach, and it's so kind of just, you got to dig through a lot of stuff to be like, is this legit? Are these people, do they know what they're doing? And I really wanted to know that it was a quality program. So that was helpful.
Yeah,
I chose trauma informed because that was a piece that I felt like I had a gap in my skill set. I have the subject matter expertise. I'm a trained facilitator and trainer, but I didn't have this piece around trauma, but it was the barrier we were encountering all the time. And so I was like, I have to have this
yeah.
trauma piece, because if I cannot enter into, or at least hold space with people in a way that's going to be both effective and also not perpetuate harm,
Mhm.
then what am I doing? And I think that was the piece that I really want to enter the spaces where there's harm happening, not just to make changes, but to also not be complicit in causing more harm in our approach.
Right.
And I see a lot of other consultants kind of just perpetuate these cycles because the culture is perpetuating harm. And so the trauma informed methodology was really interesting to me, because I wanted to understand, how do we address that with individuals within these kind of bigger systems. So when I was looking for trauma informed coaching methodologies, I was just Googling around, and there weren't a lot of programs, frankly. And then I was really trying to find good representation on the team, and looking through like who's on staff. Do they have any women? Do they have any people of color? Do they have any people, like just kind of doing my representation checklist.
Yeah.
Because I'm biracial, I'm Japanese and white, and I'm an immigrant to the States. So I have all these identities where I'm like, will they get it? Will we be safe? Will I be safe? What's the vibe?
Yeah.
Um, and so I really liked the vibe of your website and the instructors. And read a bunch of the bios and looked at a number of the students to see, what kind of people does this program attract? And it seemed like a really diverse student body, which
Hmm.
was
Yes.
exciting. Um, so that was, something that was really appealing to me in
Good.
in that choice. Yeah.
Nice. All right. Well, I'm glad then that you were able to take the course. I don't know, were you aware that we were the first in the world to be certified through the ICF as trauma informed?
I think I saw that. Yeah. And so I was like, okay, so they're doing it globally. So they have this global perspective. And first is great, which means you're pioneering in the space.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And many of our graduates actually have gone on to do some like creating CCEs for trauma informed education, that as well. So that's awesome. It's great to see that space like really opening up.
Yeah.
So yeah. All right. Any words of wisdom that you would say to somebody maybe looking to become a trauma informed coach?
I think one of the key things that I've realized in like retrospect was it was so important for me to have done my own healing work before being in the program. I
Mhm.
think one of the things I learned early in this work is, we teach from our scars and not from our wounds. And I don't know who said that, so we can credit that later. It
Yeah.
wasn't me. It's something I
Good
was,
saying though.
yeah, it was something I was taught early in the work and really believe that when we're doing something so vulnerable with people who are so vulnerable, to make sure that we're doing our due diligence on our side to have our wounds be in a healing process so that we're not reenacting them with our clients
Yeah.
and with each other. And that has made a big difference, I think, in how I experience the program. That I could see, like, oh, because I've done a lot of my own healing work, this makes sense to me why we would not do that or why this would happen this way. So it just added to, I think, my sense of clarity around the methodology and some of the rationale behind it and enabled me to engage the material without it always triggering all of my trauma and everything I have experienced in my life
Yeah.
in a more practical sense because I didn't have to pause at every point to reevaluate. Oh no, is this my trauma coming up? Or yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I say all the time, people need to be aware that if you're going to be stepping into this place of being a trauma-informed coach, then definitely you need to have done your work. You know.
absolutely. And I
And
think
no,
ongoing work too, to have that,
yes,
to have a plan that your clients, someone said, your clients are always working on the same thing as you or something like that, that your clients are going to bring up things that bring up stuff for you. And to have your plan for self-care and well-being when you're entering into space where you're holding a lot of sometimes very traumatic information and
yes,
other people's stories, and to not I think there's even a piece around like vicarious trauma of when you're entering a space to hold what happened to someone else that can also affect you. And so to have your self-care plan and your boundaries and your own healing work in an ongoing way, I'd say is what I would give advice to anybody who's starting out.
yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's important, as coaches that we always consistently do that self-care. It's one of the reasons why, when you join the program and you're able to do those free coaching sessions with the coaches that are now in the mentoring portion of the program. So same as kind of where you are in that now. And being able to set yourself up for success when you talk about wanting to make sure that you have all these things in places, when I talk to people and say, then they ask, how do I use those coaching sessions? And one of the things I talk about, set yourself up for success. What do you want this to be like as you enter into this space? How do you want this education to go in that for yourself? Do coaching sessions around these things. They're there for you and to support. So
Absolutely.
yeah,
Absolutely.
awesome. Have you been able to get your bio and your picture up on the
Yes, I'm on
That's
the directory and
perfect.
shameless plug for my website, yourliberationcoach.com.
Excellent. Good. So are you okay? Let's go back. I want to go back because when you're just saying, "Yep, this is what I'm looking for." So, um, are you a contractor now, or are you actually working within one organization?
So I have a day job, my regular job as I'm the chief operating officer of a consulting firm here in Portland, Oregon. We're kind of a small boutique firm and we work mostly with mid to large size nonprofits. And so
Okay.
I do consulting with training, facilitation, that kind of thing with my day job. And then I have a few coaching clients through those organizations that we work with. Again, they're like the leaders there who are doing change work. I also just launched my own private coaching practice because I wanted to expand more into that more holistic side
Okay.
that's not just associated with organizational change, but really about developing, particularly women of color as leaders. Being biracial, I have a special love for people who are mixed race, multiracial, people who are kind of in those like straddling cultures space. And working with women of color who are looking for holistic support around how they're showing up at work, what's going on in your life, and really around especially how are you doing in those toxic, problematic workplaces? How are you becoming well? How are you taking care of yourself? What strategies do you have in place to navigate those systems
Hmm.
that are creating invisible barriers for you at work where they're telling you, oh, we really want your voice. We need you at the table. But then no one listens to you,
Right.
right? The gaslighting of like, well, if you were just, fill in the blank, like more assertive, but then you're more assertive and they get mad at you for being aggressive and belligerent and unlikable, right? So you're like caught in all these double standards and really working through how do you want to show up? Who do you want to be? And kind of reclaiming stories. I think when I see a lot of women and especially women of color, they get stereotyped a lot at work. And we sometimes internalize other people's stories about us. I'm too much. I'm too loud. I'm too big. I'm too whatever. I'm not enough. I'm not worthy. I have to work harder, right? All those narratives and reclaiming the stories we're telling about ourselves. Like, who are you really? Get
Nice.
in touch with our values. What's important to you? What about your cultural values that you're being told don't matter here? What matters to you? And so that's a lot of what I love helping people with.
Nice. Okay. And so what's the name of your company again?
So yourliberationcoach.com.
Nice. Okay.
Website that's name your liberation coach.
Well, I'm going to be sending you a copy of this video and that as well
Awesome.
too. So you're welcome to use this video,
Thank
whatever
you.
way that you want to use it. Um, any parting words of wisdom that you might have?
Oh, that feels like a lot of pressure. Parting words of wisdom. Oh, I wasn't prepared for that one. I'm trying to think of, keep learning. I think we're in this moment where we feel like we need to know everything, but it's okay to be learning and it's okay to not know. But I want to encourage people to read, learn, grow, try, and be brave.
Yeah, nice. Well, wonderful. Well, thank you very much for joining me today.
Thank you. Really
And I,
appreciate the opportunity.
yeah, yeah. And I hope you have a good New Year's Eve tomorrow.
Thanks, you too.
All right. Well, we will talk to you soon. Have an
Perfect.
amazing day.
Thank you so much. You too.